What is the next level of support for Bitcoin, guys? Please be prepared. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in this beautiful world, whenever you're watching this video. Welcome to the Bitcoin family channel. For the newcomers, my name is Didi. In today's video, I have 2 news items. I have 5 very important charts, 1 inspirational quote. And to start the video, I need to say, I am not a financial advisor. Everything in this video is only entertainment and my opinion about the charts, about the news, and about, for example, life. Now, let's jump now into that news first. Bam! First news item about Taiwan. Taiwan just revealed they're holding $18.2 million worth of Bitcoin on their balance sheet. So Taiwan, another country, is stepping into the Bitcoin reserve strategy by now holding $18.2 million worth of Bitcoin. Please understand that all of these countries are slowly starting to feel that Bitcoin will become the gold of the 21st century, that it is the best store of value and the best performing asset, and that those countries should all hodl it next to their gold reserves. So all these countries already have a gold reserve, but now they want a digital gold Bitcoin reserve. That is why you read more and more in the news that these countries are adopting to that Bitcoin reserve strategy as well. Taiwan is one of them. Welcome to the club. Do you think this is positive or negative? Let me know down below. I will give my opinion after the second news item, because the second news item is about 4 other countries. Because while you were afraid of this huge Bitcoin dip, by now like 32% or something from the all-time high 126 to 84 it was, you were afraid. You were like, freaking out. While you were doing that, 4 other countries were adding Bitcoin to their reserve strategy. The United Arabs, we have El Salvador, we have the Czech Republic, and even Luxembourg, which is one of the biggest financial countries when it comes to wealth, guys. So those 4 kept buying the dip. They understand the long-term vision of Bitcoin. All other retail investors, people with emotions, they're like, Bitcoin is going to crash to 0, let's sell. So please understand the difference. While all you are selling, they are still adding Bitcoins. Why? Because they believe in Bitcoin in the long term. Most of you want to try to sell at the top, buy back at the bottom to multiply the Bitcoins in a very quick way. That is why I told you always, in my honest opinion, as a non-financial advisor, no financial advice, just what I am doing, you should structure your portfolio in a way that 60%, for example, is always hodl. You keep adding Bitcoins to that 60%, and 40% is your playful trading strategy, which we sell around the top, buy back around the bottom. But this 60%, you need to keep adding Bitcoins to that then, because Bitcoin will start to increase in value if you zoom out in the long term, and by that increase your purchasing power. So why wouldn't you do 60-40? So every time you have $100, $60 goes into your hodl stack, $40 goes into your trading stack. And with that trading stack, you are going to try to short-term, mid-term, or long-term sell around the top, buy back around the bottom. That's what trading does. Hodling is over here. In my opinion, again, no financial advice, you should not hodl fiat currencies like dollars and euros, because they decrease your purchasing power. You're able to buy less and less and less and less and less for those dollars and euros. Why would you want that? Please put your capital, that's what we are doing, my opinion, in a store of value like Bitcoin or gold, because that is increasing your purchasing power among the years. Even silver is doing a better job than euros or dollars, in my opinion. So please understand that difference. Countries, they keep buying while the retail sale is crying. And I know that your next question is, well, why is Bitcoin going down if everyone is buying? Because there is also a very big group of OGs that is selling their Bitcoins, transferring their capital from Bitcoins into the traditional finance again. And why? Because they are not real Bitcoin OGs. They are the ones that just were lucky to buy a shitload of Bitcoins because they thought it was a cool thing to do, but they didn't believe in the real Bitcoin revolution. They have now billions of profits and they're like, okay, I think that is enough. Let's start offloading. So they are transferring from their hands into the governments, into the institutional investors. Now, here comes my opinion. My opinion as a non-financial advisor, is not that this is positive. It is positive for the adoption of Bitcoin because now Bitcoin will become fully integrated in the traditional systems. But that is not why I started to believe in Bitcoin. I started to believe in Bitcoin as it was the replacement of the traditional systems. I don't believe anymore in the euros or the dollars that can be printed out of thin air. That traditional system has created a shitload of debt. I think $300 billion or trillion of debt. I don't believe that that system still is working correctly. Because of that system, we have huge amounts of inflation. Because of that system, nobody is able to grow their capital anymore because they just keep printing more of it. Now, if you now look at Bitcoin, that started to exist in 2009 when the financial crisis was there in the United States, the stock market crashed and everything. That is when Bitcoin was invented. The first message in the Bitcoin blockchain was also about that crash because the governments did a huge bailout of the banks. The banks were all bankrupt. There was no bank that survived the 2009 crash. And then the government stepped in, they printed money out of thin air, and they did a huge bailout. They supported and they helped the banks survive. And that message is minted in the Bitcoin blockchain. Chancellor bailout of the big banks. Something like that. Just go and Google it. And that is why I started to believe in Bitcoin, because I believe the Bitcoin blockchain system could replace the traditional system. What we are seeing now is that the traditional system believes more in Bitcoin than the retail. So they made you afraid, you can't buy, you are not buying because it's becoming really difficult, and they start to absorb Bitcoin. So Bitcoin is not a system on itself anymore. Now Bitcoin is becoming part of the traditional system. That system that, in my opinion, is not correctly working. I don't want Bitcoin to become part of that system. I want Bitcoin to be a new system, the new world reserve currency, the new store of value. I want all other currencies being backed by Bitcoin. I want Bitcoin to be a class of its own. I don't want to see it fully integrated in the traditional finance because they already fucked up. They made the world to what it is now, a world full of debt, a world full of inflation. We don't want that anymore. We want a honest system where everybody in a transparent way can see what is happening. Not being able to print money out of thin air. No man should be working for something that other man can print out of thin air. Why would you be working? Why would you be spending your most precious asset time to something that some other people just print out of thin air and distribute to just people for free? Why would you be doing that? That is why I started to believe in Bitcoin, and I have seen the Bitcoin industry change since 2013. I've seen it changing from a peaceful anarchistic revolution where we believed in creating a new financial system, the opposite of the traditional system, into now 2025, where we are integrating those two systems into each other, where Bitcoin again becomes part of that system that really created only debt. I don't see that as positive. On the other hand, I also need to be very clear. The thing that is positive is that Bitcoin is still giving me the freedom to be disconnected from the state. And that is still why I keep buying Bitcoin, hodling Bitcoin, and love Bitcoin, because I believe that Bitcoin will be the best performing asset in the next decades. I believe Bitcoin will be the best store of value of the next decades. And I believe Bitcoin will always stay that freedom tool that I can use to be disconnected from the state. We have been living this life unbanked now for over 8 years. We have been traveling 10 years almost solely on Bitcoin all of those years, 8 of those. Unbanked, only with Bitcoin, disconnected from the state. When we need to use euros, dollars, or Thai baht, we just change a little bit of our Bitcoins to Thai baht and spend that. But nobody can touch our Bitcoin. Nobody can confiscate our Bitcoin. Nobody can freeze my Bitcoin. Nobody can do anything to my Bitcoin except me and a few others that need to sign all the transactions. So please understand that that is still why my passion is that big for Bitcoin. It is a freedom tool. It's giving me the freedom to be a freedom warrior disconnected from state. And that's exactly why Bitcoin was invented, to disconnect money from state, not to connect it again to the traditional money and by that again to the state. Bitcoin is there to disconnect money from the state. That is my honest opinion as a non-financial advisor. I know many of you won't agree with that, but that's why I stepped into Bitcoin. And if the industry will keep changing into a direction that I might not love, maybe in the future I will start to invest in a new thing that again will conquer the world, guys. Now, that was everything about the news. Let's quickly jump into the charts now. Ooh, that's going to be a long video. Bam. The first chart, guys. Over here is the 4-hour chart. We are breaking a support level, which is not really good, because if we break support, we go to the next support. The next support is at 81,000 US dollars. So don't be shocked if we fall to 80K this weekend. Of course, we're still higher than this previous drop to 83,000. What was it exactly? 83,750. We're still above that one. But again, we are down below support level, so this could turn into resistance. And if this level now turns into resistance, then there is a huge chance that we will drop there before we bounce up again. Just to be clear, we have been there already, and from there, that 80K level, we did also go back to the 94K level. So don't freak out, zoom out. But again, it's a chance that that will happen. So don't be. So by now you are prepared for that. The Gaussian channel told you there's a 5-day chart. The longer we keep fighting this bottom line and not crossing into it, the more difficult it will become to get into it again. So if that happens, guys, then do believe me, we will fall further into that bear market. We need to stay above these areas over there or even there to think that we can still turn bullish. If we go back here to, for example, 2021, just to be clear, we didn't even go below that area. We stayed in the Gaussian channel before we saw that new bounce. The moment we went down below it, that was the start of the bear market. Please understand this. Now, there is also some hope. The hope is that a lot of people think that there is a mixed signals, and it is mixed signals. You know, here the super trend is setting sell, also bearish. But on the other hand, the stock RSI on the bottom, we can see a cross. This is the weekly chart. If we would look at, for example, the 2-weekly chart, let's say here, it's looking even more bullish. What do I mean with it? I'm just going to remove now this Fibonacci retracement tool. Why is that there? Because those are the levels of support that we will fall to. Just showing that first. Even the 2-weekly, you see, the 0.382, the 84 level, that's the massive level of support over here, there. That's exactly on the 0.382 level of Fibonacci retracement. The next one is at 71K. And then the next one at 57K. And then the next one at 40K. These are the Fibonacci retracement levels of support. If we hodl support over here, we can go up again to the top at 126 or higher. And then we need to redraw this. But I'm going to delete it to make it a little bit more clear on the chart. Look, the mixed signal is now in the fact that if you look at the stock RSI over here, we are almost witnessing a cross on the 2-weekly. The blue line needs to go above the red line to see a cross. Both of these lines need to be above the 20 level, above this line, to validate the move. But when that happens, and it doesn't happen often, we can see big moves in Bitcoin. Here we saw the cross, and the both lines are above it. Bitcoin went from 83K to 126K. That is a 40K move. The time before that, here was the cross, and the two lines were above it. We went from 62K all the way to 108K, a 40K move. The time before that, we went that deep. This one was also a cross above it, but we didn't go as deep. Here, we went as deep, there, and then we came above it. At that moment, we went from 16K all the way over here to 70K. Again, 40 to 50K move. Even if we go back further into the period of here 2021 bull market, we'll need to do it like this now a little bit so we can see it. Here, this move, both lines above it, that was from here, this area, 40k back to 70k, 30k move. Over here, crossing and above it, this was the cross already, was a move from, let's say here, 9k to 60k. So this move is a very important one, but also be clear, it can also be moving like this, sideways for almost a year, down below. And that's what we call the bear market. So let's see what this is going to do. If this one is going to close in a cross above it in 2 weeks, that's on the end of December, and we will see those two lines above this 20 line, then I still believe that the Q1 in 2026 could be a very bullish move. If not, I will stay true to my bear market scenario. On the monthly, we can see that then again, indeed, that candle is going to close in 12 days. This one needs to stay above the blue line, preferably around the orange line. If not, we will fall back to that red line first, guys. And that red line is at 56k. We will hit that purple line, 48k, and we will maybe even hit that green line, 38k. We have never hit that green line before, but as you can see, here we hit the red line in the bottom. Here we hit the purple line in the bottom. Maybe the next bottom will be that green line. That one is, of course, also increasing the further we move onwards with the months. So it could also be at 40k in the future. Now, do I have other charts? Yes, I have a few other charts over here. This one is very important. This one is the Bitcoin long and short term hodler supply and profit and loss, a 7-day moving average. The move that we see now is not the bottom of a bear market. That is these kinds of moves. A lot of people in losses. That is the bottom of the bear market. This COVID crash, bottom. This bear market bottom. That is the move. This, what we're seeing now, is not the bottom of a bear market. It does look similar to this scenario where we still got another 100% push from 30 to 60k. It does also look like this scenario where we had a huge crash, but also went back from 50 to 100k. So for me, that is a true signal of that it is not clear yet if we are in a full bear market or not. We could see a reversal. 30% of me believes that, but 70% of me believes we are already in a bear market, and this is just the beginning, like there. And it's going to be bigger and bigger and bigger until we see that bottom. That is what I think. Now, we can see that the Bitcoin price on the 16th of December, now we go into the positive part, of course, because now I was too depressive, but in the positive part, we can see that the Bitcoin price, this one is made by Charles BTC, on the 16th of December, guys, was 87,548. That same date, in 2024, we were on 106k. In 2003, 42k. 22, 16k. 21, 47k. 20k, 6k. You can see the trend. The trend is that we were at $3 and we went higher now to $87,000 on the same date. This trend is going to continue as we only have 21 million Bitcoins and the demand is growing tremendously. 2026, I believe we could be lower than 87k. 2027, I believe we could be higher again than 87k. 2028 and 9, we will be higher than the 2024 year. And that is what you need to understand. If you believe in Bitcoin in the long term, you should be stopping freaking out and you should be happy that Bitcoin is dipping, and you should be stopping with crying and start buying. But that's my opinion as a non-financial advisor. And that leads to this one. This one is showing you, yeah, Bitcoin is moving. This was the range $1 to $10, 400 days. $10 to $100, 350 days. $100 to $1,000, 1,356 days. $1,000 to $10,000, 1,115 days. $10,000 to $100,000, 1,915 days. And now already 217 days between 100k and a million. This bar is going to increase tremendously. There will be a shitload of days in the future, in my honest opinion, above the 100k level. And that's why you should be happy you are able to buy Bitcoin below that level. When we were here between 1,000 and 10,000,